Let me be clear. The goal has not changed. The goal is to make sure that all of our communities are fairly and accurately counted. That goal has not changed because of this July 21 presidential memorandum. And our charge to our community, our charge to our population remains the same, that they should respond to the census regardless of immigration status. As Arturo said, there is no immigration status question whatsoever on the census. And we would encourage people to respond either by telephone, online, or if they have the paper form, to respond by paper. If you do that, then depending on when the Census Bureau might send the door knockers or enumerators, they might not come to your door because you have already responded to the census. So first and foremost, we want our communities to respond to the census. And we know here that there are places where our Asian American population have not been responding in rates that we would like. Currently, about 40% of the Asian population has not yet responded to the census. And we want to make sure that they understand the importance and respond. We recognize that COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on all of our communities. And part of this is to ensure that all of us have that ability and recognize the importance of the census. The other important deadline to note is that right now, the deadline for responding is October 31. So again, you can respond in all of these different forms by October 31. And likewise, as Arturo talked about, with respect to the operations, there are going to be enumerators that will be sent out depending on the circumstances related to COVID-19. So let me talk about the July 21 presidential memorandum. As Arturo said, the memorandum has nothing to do with our current 2020 census that is taking place. And so that should not be a reason for people not to respond. What the memorandum does do is suggest that undocumented communities will not count for purposes of dividing up congressional representation, apportionment, if you will, between the states. Let me say this, that is patently unconstitutional. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution makes clear that apportionment is based on all persons in the United States. The Constitution, other places, makes clear that it understands the difference between citizens and persons. And the suggestion that somehow undocumented immigrants are not people or not persons just flies in the face of logic, flies in the face of Supreme Court precedent, and flies in the face of legislative history and policy of the United States for several hundred years. Look, we are all counted. The census counts every person living in the country, regardless of whether they are citizens and regardless of their immigration status. And so that's one thing that we need to be clear about. It is clear that there are groups that are going to litigate this matter. My group litigated initially the citizenship question in the 2020 census when the Commerce Department tried to impose that. As you all know, a number of organizations did, and we won. We are looking at the same thing here. We already have litigation against the Census Bureau on a different aspect of the Census Bureau policy with respect to how they are looking at citizenship data. We are certainly looking at including in litigation this presidential memorandum. Clearly, this presidential memorandum is unconstitutional, and we need to make sure that it stays such. The memorandum at bottom seeks to shift that political representation away from places that have large immigrant communities by define the census's constitutional mandate to ensure that each state is represented in proportion to total population. Again, it's total population and not citizenship. So it is imperative for our communities to rise above the fear tactics that are being used, rise above the misinformation that is being used, and to participate in the census.